Hey, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. I'm Dr. Ariel Hammond, and this is the Enrichment Entrepreneur, a podcast for current and aspiring entrepreneurs who are in the business of helping kids thrive. We're talking after-school programs, summer camps, tutoring, enrichment, the people and places that show up for kids outside the classroom. I'm still building right alongside you, and that's exactly why we're here, to learn, grow, and figure this out together.
Let's go!
All right, welcome back to the Enrichment Entrepreneur. Howdy, y'all. This is your host, Ariel, and yes, I'm wearing my little cowgirl shirt today, for those of you who are watching, so howdy. All right, y'all, I reckon that we're going to talk about, I'll stop there. We're going to talk about stop guessing what to change. There is something easy that you can change. It's pricing. Easy optimization. Let's not leave money on the table. That's the too long didn't read version. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes. So I want today's episode to start with something that happened on a discovery call I had a few months ago. I was talking to an enrichment entrepreneur. She'd been running different programs over the last couple of years, and parents really loved her. She was growing organically. Schools renewed, her partners renewed. So she was doing really well with her actual programs. They were beloved. But when it came time for me to ask her, do you know what your cost per session is? She said, after a long pause, I charge what feels fair. And I hear that and similar sentiments a lot in my conversations in the community. What feels fair, or, I don't want to be too much. I don't want to charge too much. I try to make it affordable. I want my prices to be similar to others in the area. Like I just charge what they charge up the street. And that's one way to do it. Charging what they think the partner will accept, what they think parents will be willing to pay. And those are valid concerns, thoughts, and considerations, but none of those sentiments are pricing strategies. They're guesses and fears with extra steps tacked on. And here's the thing with that. So she's not doing anything wrong. I started off with my pricing in the exact same way. Being in this industry, it doesn't come with a how-to manual. And most of us, we don't walk into this with a pricing framework, except if we are under the umbrella of a franchise. The rest of us, if we're independently owned, we have to figure it out on our own. So for you listening, you probably picked a number, it worked or it didn't. You got some resistance or you didn't, and then you just adjusted based on that initial feedback you got. But in 2026, costs are up. We know inflation is never going to go away. Margins, they're already thin. So this guessing becomes a really expensive cognitive shortcut. And I really mean that. Like when you don't know the cost of delivery, you can't know whether or not you're making money, and not making money just to break even. So if we don't know our numbers, a lot of times we'll think we're doing well. And once we really crunch those numbers and see like, wow, I just worked really hard to deliver that entire week of camp and I actually lost money. Wow. Or, I paid everybody else. Everybody else got what they needed. I'm thinking of Tammy Slayton. She's like, I paid my bills. My bills are paid. So that's us. We're Tammy Slayton. And if you don't know who Tammy Slayton is, then you're missing out. But yeah. So if we don't know that, then we can think we're making money and we're really not. And our staff made money. We make sure we pay everybody. But like, did we get paid at the end? And this is just that type of business. I think in general, when you're an entrepreneur, you do get paid last. I will make sure everyone is paid. And there have been many times in my business where I didn't, just to keep things afloat. And we don't want to work 60, 70 hours a week and not get paid, and making sure everyone else does. All of the different materials that we buy, those vendors get paid, and that we don't. Like, we also deserve that too. We are working full time in and on our businesses. So yeah, without knowing those numbers, you can be thinking you're up and you're not. So we're going to fix that today. We're talking about what you should actually be charging, why most operators are leaving money on the table, and what your own data is already telling you if you know where to look. So we're going to start off by talking why pricing feels impossible in our industry. And just to frame this, in my conversations with those building in the community, every person used at least 3 platforms. And if they had services that scaled beyond them teaching directly, they use an average of 6 or more different platforms to run their business. No two people use the same combination. And from that, I've mentioned that on a previous episode, but it's important to reiterate, because what I want you to hear from that is this: the operational chaos that you are experiencing, it's not personal. It's a feature of being in this business. This is a structural issue in our industry, and it costs you money. And so today we're going to talk about how that cost, what it's costing you, actually shows up in your pricing. And also, if I sound a little stuffy, little allergies. So bear with me. So let me recap why pricing in youth enrichment is genuinely difficult. Because I think before we get into like the how, we have to name the why. So you're operating in an industry where a meaningful percentage of your competition is free. We've said it before, and I'm going to say it again because it's important. Free is not free. Free is funded by philanthropic dollars or public dollars, or grants that expire in 8 months, right? Like, operated by a nonprofit that does not need to make payroll the way that you do. And parents, they don't always see the difference. They experience the difference in their wallet. So they see, for example, in my context, they see a free after school STEM program, and then they see a program that costs $250 for the winter term. And they're comparing these two things as if they're the same. And we know that they're not, but you have to price against that reality anyway. And when it comes down to the actual cost of running that program, a lot more times than not, the cost of running that program through the nonprofit is more expensive than that for-profit independently run program. But it's who's paying, and who feels the pain of that payment, that makes all the difference there. So here's my take about the nonprofit versus for-profit situation in our industry. A lot of nonprofits in this space use a structure of like, we serve the kids that can't afford it, as a way to sidestep product market fit. Uh, that might be a hot take, but I'm going to say it. And that's what I've experienced from working in schools as a teacher, as a principal, working with nonprofit and for-profit partners. And it's also what I've experienced on this side as well. I've seen nonprofits find a donor who believes in the mission, and then they operate unsustainably for years, as long as that money sustains them, until that money runs out, and then they close. That's a tale as old as time. Meanwhile, you were competing against something that was never actually a real self-sustaining business. And I'm not saying nonprofits are bad. There are likely nonprofit leaders listening right now. And technically, I was a nonprofit leader. I was a principal of public schools, right? They're not for profits. But I'm saying that the model creates a distortion in the market that for-profit operators pay the price for. And that's just the reality of it. I see it all the time, and I've experienced it. So the second thing that makes pricing hard is that parents are sensitive. Yes, they're sensitive about their kids. That's one thing, but they're also price sensitive in a way that feels really personal, but it's just a structural reality. So kids enrichment is not a protected spend line item in most families. It's discretionary. It's something that gets purchased on a whim. If there is extra left over, it is not something that is budgeted for. Some people are fantastic budgeters, so they got it. The rest of us, no, it's discretionary. So when the budget constricts and that budget tightens, even those of us who are the best budgeters in the world, when that budget tightens, the activities get cut. So there is a real ceiling on what the market can bear. And that ceiling can become lower and lower depending on the larger economic realities that the parents and the communities we serve are experiencing. It's also different. That ceiling can be lower, higher based on the zip code, the school culture, um, what else is available in that community. So there are a lot of factors impacting that. But regardless of all that, that ceiling is real, and you do have to price below it or you're not going to fill your programs. I had to sigh just thinking about it. But here's what I can say clearly. Your job is to find that ceiling for your specific context and price as close to it as your cost structure and your market allows. Your job is not to find the lowest number parents will accept, charge that. The lowest number you can charge without your lights getting cut off, and charge that. Most of us, even though we feel uncomfortable raising our prices, the vast majority of us are nowhere near the ceiling. We're just not. We're in the basement. We're at the front door thinking we're bumping up against the ceiling. It's not the ceiling. You're in the closet with the lights off and the door closed. So most people, oh, that's for real though. That's for, and I know because I'm right there with you in the closet turning around. Is this the ceiling? I hit the ceiling now. So most operators are not charging near the ceiling and are pricing somewhere in the middle of the range and calling it maximizing pricing. Okay. When we do that, real money is left on the table because we didn't do that math. We took that shortcut. And we need to make sure that just because we're uncomfortable with charging for the value of the service we're providing, it doesn't change how valuable the service is, and it doesn't change the willingness to pay and the willingness to buy at different price points for the customers that we serve. We're not charging it, but still that ability was there. And sometimes when we underprice ourselves, no one knows our programs better than we do. We are telling the public, this is how valuable what I'm doing is, right? This is exactly how valuable. So if we say, all right, it's the least valuable out of everyone in the area, people are going to say, huh? Okay, so you're where I go when I just want the cheapest thing. Okay. I don't know a lot of people, a lot of parents who choose their child's childcare options solely based on who is the cheapest. I don't know anyone that does. Pricing is real. You still use your discretion. So especially in the industry we're in, we're not doing ourselves any favors by apologizing for existing by charging the lowest prices possible. It's like our pricing is an apology. Sorry, I got to charge you money for this. What? Sorry, I'm taking up space. Sorry, I'm doing something great. I know. I'm sorry. I got to make a living while doing it. And I know it can be uncomfortable, especially those of us who just want to give. And I totally get it. But we have to reconcile that discomfort with very real business objectives needed to sustain our businesses long term. Because even those of us who are the most self-sacrificial, at a certain point, push comes to shove, and we look at that job that just got posted that we could do a quarter of the work, takes a quarter of the effort we're doing now, and we can get paid a steady salary and some benefits. And that starts to look really enticing. And all of a sudden, our business closes. Those families who benefited from our wonderful programs all of a sudden don't have access anymore. So this is something we really need to work on. Quick break. I'm building NROPS, an all-in-one operations platform built specifically for kids enrichment, entrepreneurs, and operators. I built it because I needed it. Go to getenrops.com to learn more and get on the list. Okay, back to the episode. So now I want to go through some helpful math. And I want to walk you through an actual framework. So before you set a price, you need to know 3 numbers. You need to know your cost per session, you need to know your target margin, and you need to know what your market will bear. Let's start with the cost per session. Instructor pay is the biggest line item. Take what you pay your instructor, and for that session, whether it's per hour, per class, per session, however you do it, and write that down. If you pay $25 per session and you have one instructor, that's your baseline. Now you're going to add your materials. If you spend $30 per child on supplies for a 6-week session, that is $5 per student per class. So you divide that number by your enrollment and add it to your per student cost. Now you're going to add your overhead. This is where most people they miss out on this part. Add your overhead allocation. Your insurance, your software, your admin time, your marketing, customer support, all of that, those are real costs. If you're paying $200 a month for insurance and you're running 4 programs, then that's $50 a month per program, which works out to roughly $8 or $9 per session, depending on the frequency. That number belongs in your cost calculation. It's the same with, say, you have a full-time operations staff member who supports all of your programs. You need to divide their salary by the number of programs and number of sessions that you have and per student so that you know the cost per student for that role. Next, you need to add your owner's pay. Yes, y'all need to add your owner's pay. And when I say y'all, all is in y'all. I'm part of all. I'm talking about me. Hold up a mirror. I'm talking to me here. Add your owner's pay. When times get tight, you're fueling your own growth, whatever is happening, it's enticing not to factor that in. When we do, numbers might look a bit more sobering. So if you're spending 3 hours a week on admin per program per week, and that could be, your communications, your scheduling, your invoicing, parent questions, all that stuff that comes up. And say your time is worth $50 per hour as reflected in your salary. Then that would be $150 a week. Divided by your enrollment, that's the real per student cost. And most operators, we don't count our own time. And this is why the business doesn't feel profitable even when enrollment is good. It can be profitable on paper and still not feel profitable because it's not profitable to us. It doesn't feel that because we're not factoring that part in. We're not factoring our owner pay. So let's stop doing that. Once you have your total cost per student per session, that is your floor. You cannot price below that number. And if you do, you are paying to run your own program. So there should be some huge strategic upside to running this program at a loss, and for you paying to do this, for you paying for that opportunity over a different program, maybe at a different location or serving a different age group or what have you. There should be something very strategically beneficial to ever operating a program that you are paying to run. So from there, we're not done. We're going to add our target margin. For a service business, 20 to 30% is pretty healthy. That's a healthy target margin. And that means that if your cost per student per session is, for example, like $20, then you'll need to charge at least $24 to $26 to clear a 20% margin. At that level, you're profitable. You're not getting rich out here. You're not richy richin' out here but you're building something sustainable, and that's valuable. Now compare that number to what your market will bear. So this is where the benchmarking piece really does matter. What are other enrichment programs charging in your community? That is valid information. It should not be the only information though. It's not the starting point. The starting point is knowing our operational costs. As structured, how much does it cost to run this program? After we know that, then we start looking right and left, look at our neighbors, and see, okay, now what is this one charging? What's that one charging? Okay, we're all in the same community. Parents are going to expect around this pricing range for programs. Okay. You also need to look at the types of programs. So parents understand and the market reflects that there is a different cost to different types of programs. I run the most expensive operationally and logistically heavy programs in youth enrichment, STEM robotics. You know how long it takes to put together robots before you teach the kids? A long time. Inventory kits that have 500 pieces of exact Lego that have to be coded with the tablets that then and then the tablet apps have to be updated and then the Wi-Fi has to be connected and all of this stuff. But anyway, we all have our stuff, but my type of program is very expensive logistically, and financially. So if I'm looking to my right and my left and I see soccer and theater, and then I price myself similar to those programs instead of looking at similar types of programs, then I may be under or overpricing. And so still missing the market piece, the benchmarking that is relevant to my context. So what I do is I do keep an eye on what are STEM providers charging in my metro area. And that reflects what parents are actually spending. I also keep an eye on what does their enrollment look like? It's not pocket watching. It's enrollment. It's roster watching. I must admit, because if someone's charging 40% more than you are, but you're looking and they don't have any programs anywhere near minimum enrollment and their programs all start in less than a week, that's not a good indicator that you should match their pricing. So let's keep that context in mind as well. And make sure to do that benchmarking annually. Sometimes prices won't move from one year to the next. And sometimes they move significantly. What I'm noticing in my industry is they make small increases every year. That's pretty standard. But sometimes corrections happen and more substantially, and sometimes they stay the same. So you just want to kind of keep an eye out for those things. And if you want to know more in this area, you can access our enrichment operator benchmarking checklist. And of course, it's free. I got you. We'll walk you through how to gather that data systematically. So if your cost plus margin number is below what the market will bear, you have pricing power. Bingo! Use it. If your cost plus margin number is at or above what the market will bear, you have a cost structure problem. Wah, wah, wah. Okay. We're going to keep that in. But for real, you have a structure problem with your costs. And that's just something to tidy up a little bit. But you don't want to overcorrect and then undercharge as an apology. No, you don't need to do that. You reduce the costs without reducing your quality. So if there are little extras, you give, little bells and whistles, little gifts and all those little things. Maybe there are ways to surprise and delight your customers without adding products and spend and t-shirts and all of that to your service, if that is not standard. If you're doing soccer, if you're doing sports, kids all get a little shirt. That's pretty standard. But if you're not doing that, maybe you don't need to give shirts or there are other examples of that. But whatever is normal in your industry, okay, that's expected. But if you're going above and beyond and increasing your prices to add to customer satisfaction, then think of some free ways you can do that as well. Because we don't want to compromise the experience, but we do want to have sustainable pricing. And you can also think through uh, the organization of your programs. It might mean add more students per session. Now, this is not for those of us who pack kids in our programs like sardines. No. If you already got them packed in, no, you don't add more. But if you prefer to teach a program with 4 kids and you run your numbers, whoop, and you're charging well above everyone else just to keep your head above water, it might be time to go to 6. Now, of course, that varies. Everybody's preferences are different, but just know that might be a lever you can pull. You might also want to consider a more efficient instructor model or program delivery model. If you pay your staff per hour, maybe you're used to 90-minute sessions, but you find with better training and more efficient delivery of your curriculum that the programs could have a 60-minute duration, and that all the programs in your area already have similar after school or weekend programs that are 60 minutes. Well, then maybe you could scale that back a little bit and not compromise or lose anything from the experience. So, yeah, you can also look at other tools that can cut your admin time so that your overhead allocation goes down. Because one thing we know is, as the owner, the operator, your costs are there. But what are the additional costs above and beyond what your salary or what your compensation is? Maybe you have full-time or part-time customer service. In my business, we've effectively uh, automated and leveraged technology for customer service that's trained for our specific needs so that we don't have to pay a human to do that work, to make sure that our pricing is sustainable. So there are those creative solutions for our issues that don't decrease the core brand promise. And here, I'll let you know about a free resource. Of course, every episode, I'm going to let you know about some free resources because I got y'all. So the program pricing calculator, and we'll walk you through the entire framework with your actual numbers, and it's free. Go get it. Do this math as soon as you can. It'll take you about 30 minutes, and it might change everything about how you look at your business and how you look at pricing. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the partner pricing problem. It's getting real. We got to talk. There's a partner pricing problem. Um, Yeah. So most operators don't even know it's happening to them. But it's the air we're breathing. So when you partner with a school or a district or an institution to run your programs, they set a per student rate or per program rate. They tell you what they pay, and most of us take that number at face value because we don't have any other reference point. Will believe when they say the highest number that they pay is blank. Okay, so 9 times out of 10, we'll take it. And one of the first real conversations I had with an enrichment operator when I was starting this podcast and just doing some research, about 5 minutes into our conversation, we figured out that we were both partnering with the same institution, same type of program, same school level. We were both working with younger children, and we had comparable enrollment numbers. But she was being paid very differently on a per student rate than I was. And we have both been told by the institution that we were being paid the highest rates. And here's the thing that hurts. Her programs had been part of that school for maybe 10, 15 years. My programs had just started in that school maybe 2 years ago, the third year. So they were in there like 5 times as long as we were. And their loyalty was rewarded with being underpriced, and they had tried to increase their pricing over time because the margins were not margining. They weren't what the business really needed, but they conceded. And to find out that, wait, you told us this was the highest price you're willing to pay, that you pay any of your providers, and then I talked to my peer within 5 minutes, no, they get paid considerably more. It was really hard for her to hear, and I felt bad in that moment. Like, to deliver that bad news was, I didn't even know I was delivering bad news. But I was. But it helped that business because she then had the information to go into a negotiation conversation for next school year's agreement, knowing more transparent, accurate information about their ability and willingness to pay. And so if you think about what that 5 minute conversation, the conversation was only 5 minutes, but within those first 5 minutes, in 5 minutes, that bit of information was worth thousands of dollars a year to both of us. And it's not because, we did any super dramatic thing, but it was more so reflective of us having information that we didn't have before and going back and renegotiating. Then she can go back and renegotiate. And I could go back and renegotiate because we knew what the real range looked like. So what I just reviewed is a concept called information asymmetry. So with information asymmetry, because of the lack of transparency, one party has the advantage that the other party does not, and they use that as leverage to, in some ways, exploit the other party. It happens a lot within an employer-employee relationship, where many employers forbid their employees from talking about their compensation. A big reason that they do that is they want to maintain the information asymmetry so that they can have all of the, or as much pricing leverage as possible when negotiating compensation with employees. So it's not unique to our industry. It's human nature, but it's something that we can move forward with our pricing, being aware that it's happening to operators across this industry every single day, because we don't talk to each other enough. And institutions, this is not, them being immoral or anything like that. No, they need to be sustainable. And institutions, they optimize for their budgets. And many educational institutions have budgets that are shrinking every year, even in K through 12. So they have very real pressures that they have to respond to keep their institution afloat. So I wouldn't say it's never, but I've never run across a situation in which there was ill will there. It's more sustainability and the pressure to provide services with less and less resources. And so that's just how procurement works. They pay what they can, and they look for opportunities to have a bit more leverage. And your job is to negotiate with more complete information. So you get those benchmarks, though you have those peer conversations, you get your data, and that's how you negotiate without blinders on. And what that looks like practically is you need at least a handful of other enrichment operators that you can compare notes with. And this is going to help you with pricing, but it helps you with so many things. I just had my team meeting, and at several points in our conversation, I mentioned, oh, I talked to this operator and this is how they handle their increasing need for subs. Oh, I talked to this operator and this is how they have assistant coaches and instructors and train them up. I talked to this. I mean, it came up constantly. So you can go into it through the lens of having more accurate pricing information, but also those relationships, that community has a whole host of benefits. And when you have your handful of enrichment peeps, uh, you're not forming like a cartel of people. You're just comparing notes, comparing ranges, and what you're seeing, what the district pays other providers, what this type of school pays in comparable markets, when have others gotten pushback, just to see. You're really testing where that ceiling is. And that's the type of conversation that this community exists to make possible at a national level. When you can't find that information publicly, and most of the time you cannot, you need people in the room who are going to tell you. The enrichment operator benchmarking checklist includes a section specifically on partner rate comparison. It won't tell you what the market rate should be in your specific market, but, because I can't know that. But it will tell you what questions to ask and what to track and how to build the case when you go back to renegotiate. And to be clear, like going back to renegotiate is not confrontational. It is professional and expected. You are a vendor, vendors renegotiate, and the relationship does not end because you ask for a rate that reflects your actual cost of delivery. In my experience, the relationships that are the most stable are those where both parties know what the deal is and they don't have that ambiguity. And that's where partnerships begin to fall apart, when things become a little ambiguous. So when and how do you choose your rates? Because you have to be careful when you're raising your rates. Because if you've been running the same price for 2 or more years, I gotta let you know this: you've given yourself a pay cut. Your instructor pay has gone up. Your staffing pay has gone up. Your insurance premium has gone up. If you drive anywhere, the price of gas has gone up. The materials you have, price of those have gone up. I can keep going. Just tell me something. It's gone up. The cost of everything you need to run a program, you guessed it, it's gone up. So if your prices have stayed flat, then your margin has gone down and your business has become less profitable over time. And I know when we talk about increasing prices, like a real fear can come up. I have felt the fear myself each time I do this process that I'm telling you about. I feel the fear. I actually just went through it like 2 weeks ago. It's time to raise prices again for the fall. It's like, no. It's so funny because you would think, a business owner would be like, oh yeah, time to raise those prices, or our Mr. Krabs. No, it's the opposite. It's like, oh no, time to raise time to raise crabs. Oh no, time to raise prices. But we have to do it. We got to do it. And we're taking a pay cut. And the bigger reality is that it's like we don't do it and we just avoid that. Then we may lose that thing that we worked so hard to build in the first place. So here's what I found to be most true after running programs across 75 sites a year, over 1,300 kids served in my business per year, is that the parents who leave over a modest, well-communicated rate increase are the parents who are already on the edge of not re-enrolling in the first place for whatever other reasons. A family that loves your program and trusts your staff is not walking away over $10 a per term program increase. They're not walking away over a 5% increase. A school coordinator who values you and your program does not cancel a partnership over a 5% rate adjustment. And what actually makes people really leave is really not those reasonable price increases. It's more so how it gets handled. So if they do leave at exactly that point when the price is increased, it's more about the communication versus the actual what. Communication always matters enormously. So here's the framework I use. 1 email, clear language, enough notice. Again, 1 email, clear language, enough notice. We don't need to go into all of these messages. Really quick anecdote. I worked with a hairstylist and it was time for her to increase her prices. She sent multiple long emails kind of explaining how she didn't want to have to do it, but she had to. I mean, the haircuts were already above market rate, but when you have long curly hair, it, if there's a curly girl listening, you know. But yeah, if your hair is 4 times as long as most other people's hair and you got 3 times as much, yes, it's gonna cost you a couple $100 to get that haircut. It is what it is. Um, I don't need you to apologize over it. You have a very specific, rare skill set. It's a very rare stylist that specifically cuts curly hair. So I understand that. And the over explaining, I see it from a business owner perspective, but from purely a customer perspective, it was almost like that over communication would naturally build up a resistance in a person because you keep mentioning it. And I know I didn't want to have to, but I have to. And oh, just do it. I trust what you're doing. Just do it. Just let me know. And really for me, you didn't have to let me know. Next time I go to book, I'll see the price. If it's too high, then I won't. And if it's not, then I will. But it's really that simple. We understand that we're working with businesses here. The language should be clear. You can send a brief, concise email. No one needs to know all of your unit economics behind the scene. You know that. No one needs to know that you used all of our pricing resources and your program pricing calculator. You just need to be clear on what you're communicating, and then you need to move on. And make sure, really, really important, is that you give enough notice. It would be different if, with my curly hair salon lady, if she told me right before the appointment, I had already booked it at a certain price. It's 2 days before, and this happens. And I keep going back to the curly hair example because it's like such a niche thing. But curly hair appointments have to be booked like 3 months in advance. There's a shortage. We know that there's a shortage of supply with the kids enrichment industry, but also the curly hair industry. I'll just tell you that much. So considering not just the timing on calendar days, well, I gave you enough notice. It was 2 whole weeks before. Okay. Is it something that they already reserved and paid for? Do not change prices after that. Do they have enough time to get a high quality option? So if we're talking camp pricing, we know that camps are booked months in advance. So what is reasonable notice? What's enough notice? Really depends on the situation. I would say it's like a good rule of thumb, at least 4 weeks notice before the next enrollment opens. Your returning customers, you want to let them know as soon as you can. So I'll give you like an example of what this looks like in my business. We run our pricing analysis every year at the end of spring for this current school year. We just ran it. And then we let everyone know as we do our partner renewals for the next year. We negotiate our rates with our current partners that pay us directly at that new rate for the next school year. And we let our current families know that we are raising prices for the fall. And with that, we also we open our programs early just for them so that they can purchase future programs at this year's rate, only for returning customers, because I do believe in that reciprocal relationship being valued on both ends. We want our customers to come back to us, and we want to value their loyalty and in very tangible ways. So that's just something that we do that works really well. So know that you don't need to apologize for your professional fees. Your doctor doesn't apologize for your doctor bill, nor does your dentist, nor does your accountant, electrician, nobody else is apologizing. So you don't need to apologize either. You are running a professional business and your pricing reflects that. And one more thing, remember, I'm building NROPS, finally, an all-in-one platform built specifically for kids enrichment, entrepreneurs, and operators. We're talking everything all in the same place. Finally, from scheduling to instructor management to partner and parent communication to onboarding and registration, all of it. I built it because we need it. So go to getinrops.com to get on the list. See you next episode. So I want to close this episode with something that I think is the most underused tool you have, and that is your data. Your data already knows what works. Most enrichment operators are sitting on enrollment history, session data, and retention rates that could tell them exactly where they have pricing power and where they don't. And they're not looking at it systematically. So when I finally sat down and I looked at my enrollment trends across sites, the patterns were obvious in a way that I really hadn't seen before. Certain programs filled at higher price points with no resistance. Others struggled at rates that were lower. The difference was not the quality of the program. It was the community, the day of the week, the school culture, how the program was being communicated to families. Sometimes it was the actual topic of the program. So when you look at which programs fill the fastest in your own business, which sites have the highest retention, and which price points have never generated a complaint, that's your data telling you what your floor truly is. And when you look at which programs consistently underperform, which sites churn parents, and which price points generate the most pushback, that is your data telling you that something is misaligned. Maybe it's your pricing. Maybe you're hitting that ceiling. Maybe it's the program type, though. Maybe it's the time of day, but your data is going to point you toward isolating that variable. And your judgment figures out which one it is. You don't need sophisticated analytics to do this. You need your enrollment numbers by program, by site, by price point. You can pull those today. And here's what you can do. Look at your top 5 performing programs and your bottom 5. Look at what they have in common, and that's where you start asking questions. All of this, the pricing calculator, the benchmarking checklist, the data review, it takes time that most of us do not feel like we have because we're running our day-to-day operation so much. And that is a problem that we are building a solution for. One platform instead of 6, data that you can actually see instead of scattered across spreadsheets, less time on admin and more time on this. This is the important work. You can learn more about that at getenrops.com. That's get, G-E-T, Enrops, E-N-R-O-P-S.com. It is our all-in-one platform solution that we are launching in 2026. Very excited. Everything your enrichment business runs on, all in one platform. Enrichment operations. Getenrops.com. I love it. And you're going to love it too. So learn more. All right. So now we're at the end of our episode. If this episode helped you, send it to another enrichment operator that you know who needs to hear it. That's how we build this community. All right. I will see you next Monday. Have a fantastic week. Bye.
And that's a wrap. Know someone who needs to hear this episode? Share it because
sharing is caring.
If this episode earned it, give us all the stars in a review on whatever platform you're listening on because it helps other enrichment entrepreneurs find this show.
Until next time, keep learning, keep building.